Hey everybody! Welcome back to the Chris Claremont X-Men Comic Club. John Coates, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Ready to dig back in.
We're going to talk. I have myself up on the screen. It's supposed to be this. Boop. We're going to be talking X-Men issue number 100. Which would we've made it all the way to 100 minus just a couple issues.
Yeah, they finally did it. They finally made it.
Finally did it. And it's funny, like now, if you get to 100th issue, it's like a huge celebration and also like a giant collector's issue. This is just an issue. I mean, they mention it on the cover there, spectacular 100th issue of X-Men, but it's not like a huge thing like it would be now because the collector's market wasn't really that strong, I guess, back then.
Yeah, and if we were more prepared, we would have checked at what issue the other Marvel titles were at this point, because Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, like they're way past issue 100.
Gotta be
at this point, right? Like they hit Fan 4 hit like 100 before Kirby left, and that's 6 years before this issue comes out.
Sure. Yeah, because of the pause and the going bi-monthly or yep.
Yeah, bi-monthly for 5 years. So all of a sudden you got that many less issues.
Exactly. So in this issue, X-Men versus X-Men, old versus new. Looks like we got a Cockrum cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's always good.
Yeah.
But so like, what's going on? We got the old X-Men versus the new X-Men. Charles is standing in the middle of everything.
Look at that. He's healed.
What is happening? It's a miracle. Let's get rid of these all new X-Men.
Battle to the death.
Yeah. Something to note here. Cockrum inks himself in this issue.
Yes, he does. And I like it.
Yeah. I like to see an artist in their true form, the way that they intend it to be. I mean, I don't know if any artists come up just only penciling, and not getting their ink game in line with anything. I'm not exactly sure, but I doubt that that's the case in any era, really.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see like the way that he envisions his work fully with just himself inking it.
Yeah, and I like his inks here a lot better than his inks on Giant Size.
Yeah.
When he inks himself.
Sure. Well, Giant Size, I wonder if he had to just bust it out too,
Yeah. Maybe he was promised an inker and then at the last minute they're like, oh, that guy, he has to do something else, so you got to ink it now.
Right. Okay, so we open here. So what happened at the last issue is everybody is on this spaceship, and who was it got blasted with something, and someone got hit with a blast, and they turn around and it's the old X-Men, the original X-Men.
Yes, the X-Men are on a SHIELD satellite, and they have defeated a unit of Sentinels that are subpar to the originals, and they think they have beaten this guy here, Stephen Lang, and then all of a sudden, the original X-Men appear out of nowhere.
Oh my God. So Lang has been working on this thing called Project Armageddon. That he's using it to destroy all of mutant kind. And so he's been building Sentinels. It was revealed that what he's really trying to do is extract the mutant power from people to be able to put them into regular people to use for like military reasons, but also that was the original plan for it, but also to exterminate all mutant kind.
Oh, yes, sir. And some great some great like Warriors the movie kind of banter here from the originals.
Yes.
With Iceman, he's like, "What are we waiting for, Birdbrain? Let's waste them."
Yeah, I
And
love that
the
shot of
Warriors
Angel just sort
voices.
of like hovering over the top of them.
Yeah. And then Lang's like, "Yes, these guys have shown up. Now I win."
Right. So Lang's in another
X-Man.
room, and this is on a big monitor.
Yep. And we're going to turn the page here and get an awesome double splash.
Yes. Yes.
Look at that.
I love this. I love that beat of intro page, double page splash. Boom, right in the action.
Yeah, and this is a good one.
So the X-Men, the original X-Men, seem to really, really all of a sudden out of nowhere show up and really hate the new X-Men. Also to point out that Polaris and Havoc are here. Which is interesting because they're not part of the original X-Men.
No, and there's going to be some other oddities that are going to start happening here.
Right.
We get a lot of people calling Wolverine midget. Iceman is like, "Heads up, midget," and hits him with a snowball.
We do actually. I was thinking about that. Like they're making fun of his stature, but Wolverine becomes such a badass and popular character, and you see the most people I think that aren't into comics know Wolverine from the movies, right?
Yeah, so he's like 6'2".
Yeah, and it's just like I feel like Marvel now has an opportunity when they're going to introduce him into the universe and probably get rid of what's his face, Hugh Jackman, and then recast him, and they have the opportunity to cast somebody who's like a shorter person. Like I know that looking at us on screen, it looks like you and I are at least like 6'5", 6'8", right?
At least.
But that's just not the case. Neither one of us. Give these short guys a little break and make Wolverine short and a badass, because he is supposed to be short.
Yeah. Also, if his skeleton is coated in metal, the amount of muscle mass he would need to move around, he's probably as wide as he is tall. He's like he's like 5'4", and he's like 470 pounds.
Yeah.
Is what he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that adamantium's supposed to have all sorts of wild properties, but
like light as a feather, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so, man, yes. Charles is really like, look at the lettering at the bottom. Kill them all, man.
Yeah, he's got the super hate going on. I love this Cyclops beam crossing the panel.
Such a great shot there.
It's also interesting, like the color change, because usually his eye beams are red the whole way when they color them.
Yeah,
but here it's kind of got a little gradation going, which is interesting. Great Colossus punch. And we get our other guys, Nightcrawler climbing walls, and he's telling Storm like they're not our friends, they're out for our blood.
I gotta say, the more and more I read this, the more I love Nightcrawler. I just love him.
He's so good. And if you start reading X-Men in the late 80s and into the 90s, like there's no Nightcrawler anymore.
Right.
And we'll find out why in a few years when we get there. But it's kind of, and you go back to this and it's like, man, he's a main dude and awesome.
Yeah.
And you just miss that. And then, if you grew up with the cartoon, he's not in the cartoon. Colossus isn't on the team. Like, you just miss so much.
Right.
So here we go into our boy Nightcrawler. And he's fighting the Beast. And he's the one who notices a little difference right away because he says, "Oh, you're the Beast, but I thought you'd gone all hairy and joined the Avengers."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because if we remember a couple issues ago, the Beast calls him on the view screen to go fight Nefaria, and he's already blue and furry.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Beast here kind of comments that like, well, I've never been furry. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And he's taking out Nightcrawler a bit, and then Nightcrawler notices Cyclops' visor looks different.
And then he gets blasted with the full force of the visor, which should have full force of the blast, which should have just obliterated him, right?
Yeah. He'd be just like a puddle.
Right.
Torn in half. And then we get Iceman fighting Wolverine. And they've already had like a bit of a rocky start.
Right.
From sort of the giant size era.
Mm-hmm.
And so Wolverine's cutting him up. Of course, got that second bub. He gets chucked into Colossus.
And then they make a reference here to a previous issue where they were kind of training together in the danger room, and they call it the fastball special.
Yeah,
execute
huge
now.
moment.
Which is another reason that it's great that Wolverine is small, because Colossus can just chuck him like a baseball.
Yeah. So this is the first fastball special in X-Men right here.
There's going to be more.
Oh my gosh. There's going to be so many more. It's the classic X-Men fight move.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, chucks Wolverine, claws first. So awesome. And then we get this great shot, Havoc blasting Colossus. And you notice they actually spell Havoc's name correctly now. The last issue we saw it, they were spelling it with a C at the end.
Yeah. Or
C, they weren't exactly sure what they were doing.
Right. I think it's super interesting that now we're 7 issues, 6 issues. I'm not sure how many issues we are into this. Not very many, but right at the very beginning, we're introduced to Havoc as he's leaving in giant size, and he's nice, and then he's introduced a little bit later, being nice and stuff. But then right away, he's his mind is taken over, and he's a bad guy. So like if you miss that giant size basically and we're just reading this, you would think that Havoc was bad, because now we're seeing him for a second time and he's like attacking them again.
Yeah, he spends an awful lot of time fighting the X-Men.
Yeah. So far.
Yeah. And Colossus going into rage mode again, because he's like, this is the second time you tried to kill us, Havoc, and basically there's not going to be a third. And he takes a steel beam here and just rocks him.
Yeah.
With it.
Yep.
Bam. And now Storm is trying to fight off Jean.
Yes. And I love that drawing of Jean there. That shot
from behind
back there. That was such a great pose. I would never have thought to throw her arm back like that. It shows so much like motion. And then these next
her hair like flipping up.
Yeah.
Great.
And those next 2 close-ups are just like really great Cockrum close-ups.
Yeah. And I really like this Jean costume.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was a sucker for sort of the skirt and the pointy mask.
Yeah.
And the green and yellow. It just looks pretty sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So Storm is like trying to tell her like, why'd you turn against us? We're friends. And Jean says, you're no friend of mine, witch.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of maybe another hint that like, well, maybe something's weird here.
Yeah.
And then
he says, you're not yourself here at all.
Yeah. Storm kind of figures it out. But like, you're so unlike yourself, unless you're not yourself at all, your true self. You must be an imposter. But she gets blasted before she can kind of tell anybody.
Brock.
Yeah. Good move, Lorna.
Yep, Polaris comes in and nails her. Then she's pinned down with some stuff. Now, I thought it was also a little bit crazy too that they're on this spaceship, this space station that if the hull is breached at all or power goes down, they're dead, and they're just tearing it apart.
They're throwing around a lot of power and a lot of damage for what should be a really a kind of a thing you don't want to mess with.
Yeah. Next page is page 8. I have a note that says, it's page 8 on mine anyway. It says, Havoc gets a new do. He's not as leprechaun looking as he was in previous issues.
He's got a different part going. He doesn't have the slick back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought that stood out to me for some reason.
It's his younger hairdo here.
Yeah.
Yep. And he comes through here and he's just unloading. And of course, Colossus is running up ready to free his lady Storm.
Yep.
And Wolverine is going crazy.
Yes,
and he's
ever
going
the hair
after,
trigger.
Yeah, going after the professor.
Mm-hmm.
And the professor all of a sudden stands up out of his wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Holy.
And cold cocks him.
Yeah. He's like, one of my mind blasts could shrivel you where you stand, but my fist has all the power you deserve. And just punches him instead.
So I wonder if this version of the professor has the mind blast. Because I'm sure he would have used it.
Yeah, you'd think if he's got it, he would use it.
But I guess that's neither here nor there because the other ones all have a bit of the power anyway. Because as you'll see in the next page, Jean blasts Wolverine. But this is a great Wolverine moment, this middle section here.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And now all of a sudden we get a little Wolverine's like, only my instincts are left to guide me.
Yeah, he's an animal.
My senses.
I'm like an animal.
See, folks, I'm like an animal. I don't know from faces. I know from sense, voices, feelings. I also know Jean Grey, and lady, whatever you are, you ain't Jean Grey. And boom, he goes at her with the claws.
Look at that reaction.
Yeah.
From everybody.
Everybody's freaking out. They're like, are you crazy? And Banshee's always calling him like a homicidal maniac. Like he's like, you're a murderer. And this is a cool moment because all of a sudden Wolverine for the first time has mutant powers. It's the first time they mention that he's got some animal like senses and stuff.
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, we saw his claws come out of his body.
That would be, I guess, that would be the other thing you could consider. His mutant ability till now was having metal claws.
Sure. Well, do they even say that they're metal?
I mean, they've said that they're they haven't said like what kind of metal they are, okay. But they, obviously look metal. And, they have a teammate in Colossus whose whole metal? Body turns metal. So when they see him come out of his hands, like they don't ever say like, oh, that's why you're a mutant or anything like that. They're just like, oh, they're in your hand, not your gloves. Yeah. So I guess, you could be like, okay, yeah, his mutant power is he has metal claws, which is cool. And now all of a sudden, but now he also has cool senses and he can tell when something's wrong. Yeah. Which is awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a great thing that he should have if his name's Wolverine. It just kind of goes along with that animal name and stuff.
Yeah, I wonder how like deep into the conversation they are at this point when they're developing him, like where the line is with him, because obviously they're kind of making it up as they go. And seeing how fans are reacting to it and stuff, because he's really turning into the anti-hero here for sure.
Yeah. And so now we see when Banshee is calling him a maniac, Stephen Lang is kind of watching on this giant TV screen the battle going on.
Mm-hmm.
So he is not, and he's like, I need to see what's happening. The camera has to shift. And we get another pretty great double splash here. And in the camera, we see our dead Jean, who is a robot.
Yep. And he figured out how to draw that side angle or 3/4 of Wolverine's head at this point.
Yeah, it looks correct there. It's like, oh, okay, that's what I recognize.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing to draw, especially, it gets a little easier when the contour twists. When it's straight like that, it's hard. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Lang here is super pissed because basically he was copying mutant powers and creating X-Men Sentinels, or as he calls them, X-Sentinels.
Yeah.
The ultimate Sentinel. Unbeatable, but the new X-Men have destroyed them. And here you get to see the Professor and our astronaut Corbeau and the real Jean and the real Cyclops locked up in these tubes.
Right.
From where they got captured.
Yeah, I love that thing over I love the thing over Xavier's head. I wonder why there's not one over Jean's head.
Oh yeah. Like maybe they only had one, and they're like, he's the top telepath, so we'll give him one, and then hope the bubble protects her.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Lang is like really arrogant, but has kind of some questionable technology.
Yeah.
That he's got a lot of confidence in, but it's not up to snuff. Great Cyclops visor as always with Cockrum.
Yep, another nice close up.
Yeah, and we get
you see the as he talks about the he kind of flashes. Well, I mean, it's a flashback to how all of this kind of came to be.
Yep.
But in the other classic X-Men issues that we went over, they kind of fill in the gaps of this story, and it's kind of really cool to see like how it read when it was first released without that stuff. You see these people and with the hoods over their head that you later find out are the Hellfire Club.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, because it's a Council of Chosen,
right?
And you just think, okay, well, who are these guys? I wonder if they'll show up again. And it's not until 11 years later when classic X-Men shows up,
right, that
they tell you that these are members of the Hellfire Club,
right, and that they're all dead now because because he, what's his name, the Black King took them all out.
Right? Yeah. So it's like not even the members that show up later in X-Men. It's the pre leaders before those guys.
Wild.
I like
pretty
this.
Cool. Pretty cool.
I like where the feet touch the bottom panel like that.
Yeah.
I like when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great move.
So he was tasked with running this project, but he had access to Larry Trask's upstate New York base.
Yep.
So that was the original creator of the Sentinels. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the original guy from the original Kirby and Lee issues.
Okay.
In his Sentinels, and like right here, this little green guy with the weird mask, that's a throwback. That's the Vanisher.
Oh, okay.
From issue 2 of X-Men.
The Vanisher.
Yeah, I don't think he was very cool. So that's like the only time he's going to show up here.
All right, I've got an insert panel here now to bring up. And so what we'll show here is we've got Lang on the screen, and his people are sort of telling him that things are starting to break down on the shuttle, or on the base that they're on. All the systems are failing, even the backup systems are failing. I wanted to point this panel out because, you know, he's got him. Who's drawing this? This is James Sherman is drawing this. And he's got the monitor, you know, sort of at a slant here. And I think most artists would just kind of draw the image on there, but he, you know, he was smart and squished it a little bit, which, you know, is, looking at his style, he's not very photo referencey. You know, it's smart to think of that. And it just kind of talks about, you know, how the crew is going to get out of there. So, you know, like when this thing inevitably goes off into whatever it happens to this thing, you know, nobody is going to get hurt. So they backed it up and made sure nobody was going to get hurt. And then it kind of talks in here about how the power is fluctuating. And Cyclops is thinking, well, when the power fluctuates, this negatube that he's in that negates their mutant powers, when it goes down, he can just keep nailing it with his blast here. And eventually when the power is down, it'll destroy it. So they don't mention like how they get out from the blast. Why didn't he just blast it sooner? It's because the power is failing on the thing. So they had to back up and put that in here. And I think that works. I mean,
yeah, that's a nice little added explanation.
Yeah, it's not totally necessary, but sure, like, you know,
it's, you know, I appreciate Claremont, you know, taking the time to like rethink through some stuff.
Yeah.
And that he cares enough that he wants to really explain and make everything make as much sense as possible in this fictional world.
Sure. Yeah, I still haven't gotten a clear answer as to why they decided to add these things to every issue, up to a point of these classic X-Men. It'd be interesting to ask him, because I can't find it anywhere on the internet. Maybe if somebody out there knows, but I haven't been able to find it yet. I haven't searched too hard, but to be fair.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know if it was like, if he brought that to editors when they were like, hey, we're going to reprint, start at the beginning of the new X-Men run because they're pretty expensive and we want new readers to cheaply get into it. You know, did he bring that to them, or did Marvel go to Claremont and be like, hey, do you want to add anything to get old readers to rebuy them?
Here's a question for you. It says the editor from the very beginning of all of these on the classic X-Men is Ann Nocenti on the classic X-Men. Is she the editor on these issues too, or is it Louise Jones at this point?
No, Marv Wolfman.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's Marv Wolfman editing it. Yeah, it's funny because he's not credited as editor at all on the classic X-Men ones. Yeah,
that's interesting. They must have just, because Nocenti would have been, because she just got into the Marvel game like around when she did the Long Shot series as a writer. So that's in the 80s.
She was Louise Jones, then Simonson when she married Walt. Her like editorial assistant, from what I understand, and then took over did that.
Yeah.
So at some point, Louise takes over as editor of X-Men too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, you get between those three, like Nocenti and Louise Simonson and then Claremont together, I think they create like this really great team, because that's where you start getting all the different branching books, the New Mutants and things, and they start kind of mixing it up, and they all like kind of feel like they've got a nice flow and they work well together.
Yeah, there's a great documentary on Amazon Prime about Claremont, and there's some really great scenes in there where it's the three of them just sort of sitting on a couch and talking about all of the creation of all of this stuff. And you could just tell that they were having like a great time until they weren't.
Yeah.
Until they weren't.
Right. So I wanted to point out this little ad here, just to show where Marvel is at when this Claremont X-Men stuff is just in its infancy, you know? So you've got your regular classic heroes, but you also have, you know, the original Captain Marvel, the sort of Jim Starlin-y space stuff going on. You've got Howard the Duck, you know, your weird Steve Gerber horror stuff. And they've got the Conan stuff already.
Okay.
Which is doing, you know, gangbusters for them. So it's kind of an interesting, like, oh, weird.
Yeah, and it looks like maybe Romita is art directing still at this point.
Yeah, I think he did that for quite a while.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's their answer to mad.
Yeah, must be. I wonder if that kind of looks like, I wonder if that's a Marie Severin drawing.
Yeah.
She's so good. So good. Okay, here we go back to the X-Men. And now that we have our explanation as to what's going on with these negatubes, Lang's freaking out, and all of a sudden, bam, Cyclops busts out. And then he just turns his blast and just shatters the glass of all the rest of them and frees everybody. And Lang is still all busted up from where Cyclops almost punched him to death.
Yeah,
in the previous
love
issue.
That shot with the missing tooth and the black eye.
Yeah, and here's where he's freaking out, calling Cyclops that Cyclops isn't a man, he's a mutant. But Lang, he's a man. Like, I'm a man, I'm a superior man, and I'm gonna reach my flying gunship and I'm gonna prove it.
Yeah, this gunship is cool looking.
Yeah, it's a great little. You could see that as like a little G.I. Joe thing or something like that, you know?
Yeah, it was totally that thing that detached from the ram thing from He-Man, you know?
Yeah. So it's an interesting kind of shot, because we get the foreground is the room we're in with Lang blasting at Cyclops, and then the background is the television screen showing us where the other X-Men are, and we can see they're just wasting the other Sentinels now that they know they're robots. And Storm's just tearing that one up. Banshee's unloading there.
Yeah, and as you can see, to drive the point home, it's Cyclops overlapping Cyclops there. The one's getting torn apart and the one is dodging. So just so we know exactly what's going on. Another cool shot of Jean using her powers with that sort of negative line space there.
Yeah, the awesome orange and yellow glow that they keep doing, which is amazing. And so here's an interesting thing. So Jean, Lang is like in his little spaceship, and Jean uses her powers to mess with the controls so that he can't control it anymore, and that sends him out of control, and he goes straight into the big TV screen and explodes. And that's all she wrote. So Jean basically kills Lang.
Oh man, time out here. Time out. Right there. Time out.
Yeah.
Check this out.
Oh, do they?
Nobody's gonna die in this episode, in this issue, because it says, "I'm alive thanks to my telekinetic protective field. Unlike you, Lang, the X-Men don't kill." So we have an extra page here. What the one panel that you have, but then added these other panels here. He's talking about that they're going to bring him to criminal trial, and he's like, no jury in the world will convict me. I'm going to be considered a hero. And suddenly, without warning, Lang, and I think that means that the ship that he was or something blew up and killed him, but it wasn't Jean.
Wow, what an interesting retcon there, that they thought to do that, because I mean, between the original issue coming out and the time they put out Classic X-Men, the X-Men have killed some people.
Yeah.
In that 11-year span.
Sure.
Including Jean. So it's, and like Lang, he's like a super, sort of pseudo-Nazi kind of hate monger guy that they felt like, it was like bad to say that she killed him right there. That's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if it's Claremont kind of going, no one's going to die in my issues, or they're not going to kill anybody in my issues at this point. Or I don't know. Actually, this is way later, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Oh, well. And then there's let me see. Let me pull it back up. Sorry. There's another panel here that's added too. There's a propellant explosion is what ended up doing it. So that is that's what happened. Boop. All right. Back to our regularly scheduled program.
And now we're going to sort of wrap the issue up. And I think the end of this issue is really stinking good. Right? Do you think?
Yes.
It's like really good.
Yes.
And we get these cool colored toxic smoke here, where the X-Men have all come together and they're like, okay, it's time. We got to get out of here. And they're talking about, well, there's a hole in the shuttle that we got to fly out of here, and we don't have any spacesuits anymore. And Corbeau is like, yeah, that's the least of our problems. Because if you forgot, and Nightcrawler remembers, the solar flare.
Yeah.
Remember, for like 2 issues, they've been mentioning this solar storms and stuff coming around. And and that's going to just douse them with radiation. And Corbeau is saying that, yeah, he can fly the shuttle, but he'll die in 30 seconds if he gets hit with the solar flares. One of the X-Men might survive, but they don't know how to fly the shuttle.
Right.
And right away, I love this image of Jean here, this expression.
Yep.
This slight, just sort of like pinched brow. You can tell like she knows
this is a suicide mission.
Yeah, I can do both, but it's going to cost. Yeah. Yeah. Great image. Like, this might be like the best Jean Grey moment up till this point in X-Men comics,
Yep.
And Cyclops, of course, is freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're not a qualified astronaut. You can't do it. And so she just uses her powers and brain wipes Corbeau and just learns how to be an astronaut good enough to fly and get him down. And then she says her telekinetic powers can screen out the radiation. And Cyclops is still trying to talk her out of it. And so she just blasts him and knocks him out.
Yep. Long enough for it to be too late when he comes to.
Yep.
To do anything about it.
Yep. And she's like, tells Banshee, get him out of here. Get to the life cells. And now here comes Wolverine kind of asking like, whoa, what are you trying to do? You trying to prove something? It's a suicide mission, Jeannie. Yeah. And then she unloads on him saying that my name's Jean, mister. I've just about had it with you. And tells him, so shut your mouth and get into the life cell now before I lose my temper.
Yep. Yeah, and then Storm has her moment there where she comes up and Jean's like, not you two, I can't bear it. It kind of has to be done. And so then Storm is kind of like, yeah, okay, I get it. And tears up and they give each other a hug and off they go. And Jean sort of seals the thing up.
Yeah, and and she lays it out here. It's like, I have the best chance of survival. It's me or it's none of us.
Yep. exactly.
And then, you know, so they got some tears in their eyes. Storm, you know, is tearing up because, like, no one is super confident that she's going to make it. And then, boom, seals the shuttle, gets that good glow.
Yep. Puts it in reverse. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And here, you know, she's thinking stuff like, according to StarCorps, the flare's a minute away, and it'll be a half hour at least before we're safe. Lord,
Yep.
I'm scared. I don't want to die.
This is great. This is there's so much suspense and drama happening in this moment. Look at the page layout too. The entire issue, except for some spreads, you know, he's kept it to a standard grid.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see in a moment here how he pulls it in. I don't want to take away from this top panel though, or this top row, where you know, Scott wakes up and realizes what's happening, and Nightcrawler is kind of and Colossus are holding him back, and you know, like Nightcrawler is just so empathetic to everybody. You know, he understands everybody's emotions. He's feeling Scott's pain here, and you know, tearing up about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
pretty great moment.
Yeah, amazing. The emotion on Nightcrawler's face here.
Yeah,
when he says it's already too late.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then when Jean is trying to you know, in the thick of it with, you know, trying to pilot this thing, she just learned how to fly it. She's also trying to, you know, seal the radiation and the heat out because there's no windshield in the thing, and the solar flares. It's all just too much, and it's all just happening. So boom, 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 and that's when he does these inset panels to make just kind of compress and make everything compact. And when you're reading the issue, you know, when you're in it and you're feeling the flow of the issue, when you get to this page, just the layout of the page makes it feel more claustrophobic and intense.
Yeah, it's like you feel like the time, like you're just stuck in this tension.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, especially like all of a sudden you get these little tack, which is like, you know, the radiation Geiger counter kind of stuff. All of a sudden, like, it's coming through, and she's like, "Oh no, my screens are starting to give way. The flare, the radiation, it's starting to get through." Scott, and just tack. To be concluded.
To be concluded. Yeah, that's just that such a heavy, awesome moment at the end of this issue. You know, it's Claremont writing at his finest. It is Cockrum, you know, having a real mastery of the visual elements, and it's just like great comics.
Yeah, how do you, like, you pick this up off a spinner rack and you read that? How do you're not just foaming at the mouth? You just need to know what's happened.
Yeah.
And then you got to wait 2 months.
Yeah. 2 months. 2 months.
2 months. And that's how the spectacular X-Men 100 comes to a close.
Awesome. Just an awesome issue. If I can pull up the classic again for 1 minute, there's this cool insert that has these portraits of the X-Men circa issue 100, brought to you by Dave Cockrum. So that's a really cool thing to end it. 1977, he drew this. Year I was born.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool inking style too on this. It's different from what he did on there, like especially when you look at the hair, the way the hair is done. It looks like he's using a different instrument than he did, you know, on other things. Just kind of having fun. Wolverine's got a beer, you know. That's really cool. I'll take a look at the cover of the classic. Again, the great Art Adams. Look at, I don't know why Wolverine's face by Art Adams is always so good, but it just is. And then inside, check this out. This whole shot of the team. And look at the sass on her.
Yeah. That like the
good.
original X-Men never looked so good.
No, they did not ever. Look, it does look a little bit like Angel's wings got frozen by Iceman there, but
yeah.
But it looks really cool. And then, Xavier standing. Whoa. So really cool. Really cool. Great issue. Well, that's it. I mean, we're carrying on next week with issue 101. So grab your copies, grab your classic X-Men number 9 or your 101 traditional issue, or read it on the app, or get the omnibuses. I know our friend Matt King had commented on how he just ordered that so he could read along with us. So that's really cool, Matt. Thanks for doing that. I hope a lot of you are reading along with us. And until next week, John, where can people find you on the interwebs?
I am on the Instagram at jdcoates, and my comics are at dinobeast.com.
Awesome. Stay tuned for a speed drawing of the YouTube thumbnail that we have up for this episode. Remember, the original art will be available on my website, chrisandersoncomics.com. And until next week, later.
Later.
Join my Patreon to see my work before anyone else, plus score physical sketchbooks, mini comics, and commissions delivered right to your door, and reading my new books, Something Seems Off and Three-Headed Pigman, as they are made. Go to my website to order original art, commissions, and my books, Lost Angels, Spectral: A Showcase of Fear, Chaotic Neutral, and more. Gray Matter Drip, The Art of Chris Anderson, is available now from Cosmic Lion Productions. Here are the upcoming conventions I'll be at the time of this recording. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. It helps spread the word. Thanks.